It was supposed to be a routine sentencing hearing. Nothing special, no cameras, just another day in Courtroom 3B of Charleston County Courthouse. The accused was already in cuffs. The attorneys were exhausted. Even the bailiff was checking the clock, waiting for lunch. But that day, something happened that would send shockwaves across the country. Judge Clara May sat behind the bench, straight-backed, calm and focused. A black woman in her early 40s, Clara had carved her name into the justice system with her silence and strength. She didn't need to raise her voice. Her presence did the talking. But not everyone respected that, and certainly not Sergeant Travis Boon. Boon wasn't just any cop. He was the kind of officer who never quite left the past behind, the kind who wore his badge like armor, but saw it as a weapon. Over 15 years in the force, countless complaints, but never disciplined. Why? Because he knew the right people. The ones who laughed off attitude as just being old school. That day, Boon was assigned to transport the defendant, a young black man named Jordan Willis, accused of robbery, but later revealed to be innocent through camera footage. Clara had reviewed the case herself. There was no doubt. Jordan had been in the wrong place, but he hadn't done a damn thing wrong. She was ready to release him with full exoneration. Boon wasn't ready to let go. As Clara calmly read the dismissal, Boon stood by the defendant with folded arms, jaw locked. "You're free to go, Mr. Willis," Clara said. The courtroom was silent, except for Boon. He didn't move. "Sergeant," Clara said, firmer this time, "you may uncuff the defendant." Still, nothing. Then Boon muttered, loud enough for the room to hear, "This is why this city's a mess, letting animals walk out like nothing happened." The words fell like thunder. Gasps echoed. The defense attorney stood up. Even Jordan froze. Clara did not. Her eyes locked on Boon. "Excuse me?" He met her stare. "You heard me, Your Honor." A silence thicker than the courtroom walls filled the air. Clara rose slowly from her seat. "You're dangerously close to contempt, Sergeant." Boon stepped forward, and in one motion, like a switch flipped, he reached across Jordan, bypassed the bench's boundary, and punched Clara May square in the jaw. Time stopped. The courtroom exploded in screams. Clara stumbled backward, catching herself on the edge of the bench. Her robe fluttered. Security ran forward. Attorneys jumped to their feet. And Boon? He stood there, chest heaving, eyes wide, as if realizing too late that the whole world had just witnessed what he'd done. But Clara didn't fall. She didn't cry. She didn't even shout. She stood back up, straightened her robe, and looked Boon dead in the eyes. "You just hit a judge," she said quietly. In a courtroom, on record, Boon tried to speak, tried to say it was an accident, a reaction, anything. But Clara raised her hand. "You'll say nothing. Bailiff, restrain him, and read him his rights. Now." The same man who had spent years handcuffing others now felt the cold steel wrap around his own wrists. And the woman he thought would break, she was just getting started. The courtroom fell into chaos. It wasn't just a punch, it was a signal, a crack in the glass that threatened to shatter everything. But Clara May didn't flinch. As Boon was dragged out by security, her eyes never left him. "Get him out of here!" she ordered calmly, her voice carrying across the room. The guards obeyed, but not without hesitation. The tension in the air was thick, electric. The rest of the courtroom seemed paralyzed. But Clara? She had already regained her composure. She wasn't just the judge anymore. She was a force. "Everyone," she said, lifting her gavel with unshaken hands. "Return to your seats. Court is back in session." She wasn't the kind of judge who needed to raise her voice. Every word she spoke held weight, and her silence screamed louder than any order could. But this time, things were different. As Clara continued with the proceedings, the weight of the moment pressed down on her. Her hands trembled as she wrote notes in her logbook, but her mind wasn't on the case at hand. It was on the realization of how deep the corruption ran within the system she had worked in for so long. This wasn't just about one cop. Boon's actions had been building for years, and Clara had the proof. The case files she'd reviewed, the ignored complaints, the officers who had turned a blind eye to the abuse, all of it pointed back to a larger, systemic issue. As soon as court adjourned, Clara picked up the phone. She dialed Internal Affairs. Her call wasn't about getting Boon arrested. Number it was about something bigger. "I want an investigation into every complaint ever filed against Sergeant Travis Boon," she said, her voice a controlled fury. "And I want a full review of the department's handling of racism and abuse. It's time this system faced the truth." The voice on the other end of the line was silent for a moment before responding. "Judge, you understand the consequences of making that call, don't you? This will shake things up. It will put you in direct opposition with half the force." "I don't care," Clara replied, her voice cold and resolute. "It's time someone stood up for the people in this city who are too scared to speak." Within hours, the courthouse was buzzing with rumors. The media had caught wind of the attack on Judge May, and the story spread like wildfire. Headlines screamed about the racist cop who had assaulted a black judge in her own courtroom. The public outcry was immediate. Protests erupted outside the courthouse. People who had once been silent, too scared to speak out against the police, now had a voice. Clara's bravery became the spark for a movement, but not everyone supported her. In the back rooms of City Hall and the police department, whispers spread. Clara May was a threat. She wasn't just a judge, she was a problem, and problems had to be dealt with. A manila envelope appeared on her desk the next morning, a letter tucked inside. The handwriting was familiar, thin, cold, and threatening. "We know what you're trying to do, Judge. Stay in your lane. This is your only warning." Clara stared at the letter for a long time, her fingers brushing over the paper. She could feel the weight of the threat, but she felt no fear. It only fueled her resolve. "Let them come," she muttered under her breath. She wasn't backing down now. She had seen what was happening behind the scenes. She had the evidence, and the law was on her side. If they thought she would fold, they didn't know Clara May. As the days passed, Boon's actions continued to reverberate through the community. The pressure on the police department mounted. They couldn't protect him any longer, and neither could they ignore what Clara had uncovered. But the deeper she dug, the darker the picture became. Boon wasn't just a rogue officer. He was part of a network that had been allowed to flourish under the department's watch. The corruption ran deep, and it was going to take more than a single investigation to bring it to light. But Clara was ready. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for the people of this city, for every victim who had ever been silenced. And she wasn't going to stop until the truth was exposed. The storm was brewing, and Clara May stood right in the eye of it. She had the evidence. She had the backing of the public. The investigation into Sergeant Boon had revealed decades of corruption, abuse, and cover-ups. But Clara knew this wasn't going to be easy. The system was designed to protect its own, and Boon wasn't the only one who had blood on his hands. As the internal investigation ramped up, Clara faced mounting pressure, threats, intimidation. Her life outside the courthouse became a blur of nervous glances and hushed whispers, but none of it mattered. Clara didn't flinch. One morning, just days before Boon's trial was set to begin, she received a phone call. It was from the head of Internal Affairs. "Judge May, the higher-ups are pushing to close the case. They say it's too much of a distraction. They want to drop it." Clara's hand tightened on the receiver. "And what do you say?" "I say we have no choice but to pursue it. You're the only one standing in their way now." Clara felt her heart pound. This wasn't just about Boon anymore. This was about an entire system built on corruption. She wouldn't be silenced. The trial began in a few days, but what Clara didn't know was that Boon's supporters were already making their moves. Just as the trial opened, another bombshell dropped. A scandalous video emerged. Boon was caught on tape bragging about how he had gotten away with murder on multiple occasions. The media went wild. The city was in flames with outrage. Boon was arrested immediately, his badge stripped, and his case set for trial. The public was in a frenzy, but Clara knew it was far from over. In the courtroom, as Clara delivered her final ruling, she spoke with a quiet power that had become her trademark. Justice isn't just about what happens in this room. It's about the truth that is revealed, no matter how hard it is to see, and today, the truth is finally clear. As Boon was sentenced, Clara watched him leave the courthouse in handcuffs, his face pale and defeated. But as she stood there, watching the cameras flash, Clara knew one thing: this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning.